I'm a physical therapist. I can tell when a shoulder is about to dislocate by the way someone breathes. I can also tell when my family is about to do something unhinged by the way my mother polishes the good forks. On Sunday, she had the forks lined like soldiers, gleaming like an apology. "Don't be late," she'd texted. Big surprise. Translation, trap. I showed up with a salad and my leather portfolio, because I had notes for a Monday staff meeting and also because I trust exactly zero surprises in that house. My sister, Grace, the family's solar eclipse, rare, blinding, and everything stops for her, was already perched at the head of the table, even though that's Dad's seat. She wore a blazer I recognized from my own closet. "Sweetheart," Mom sang. Sit, sit. We have something so exciting for you." I sat. Dad cleared his throat, pushed aside the roast like it offended him, and slid a 3-ring binder across the table. On the cover, Revitalize PT, Phase 2 Expansion. My clinic's logo, which I designed at 2 a.m. 3 years ago, was copy-pasted crooked onto every page. Grace laced her fingers, CEO style. "We've been working on a business plan," she chirped. "For your clinic." I blinked. "You have?" Dad beamed. "Family effort. Mom, it'll take the burden off you." "Grace, I'll be COO. You'll stay the therapist." The room tilted. "I own the clinic," I said, carefully, like a therapist explaining pain scales to a stubborn patient. "What burden?" Grace flipped the binder open. Charts. Buzzwords. A tab labeled Monetization of Patient Experience, which made my skin prickle. "We'll start with premium packages, monthly memberships for Priority Recovery. I'll handle pricing. Mom will coordinate VIP socials." "Oh. And we already spoke to a supplier about branded supplements." "Spoke to whom?" I asked. Grace's smile sharpened. "Dr. Luca. He says your treatment plans are ripe for vertical integration." Dr. Luca is a chiropractor with a TikTok and a God complex. He once told a patient to ditch her post-op protocol for spinal vibes. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "You can't promise priority care. My schedule is medically triaged." "And supplements?" "We don't sell things people don't need." Mom poured herself more wine, sloshing it onto the tablecloth. "Honey, don't be dramatic. Your sister has experience." Grace's experience was a failed boutique that sold candles shaped like fruit and an MLM that ended with the Attorney General's newsletter. Dad leaned in. "There's more." He lowered his voice, like sharing state secrets. "We've seen some concerning feedback from your patients." A cold knot landed in my stomach. "What feedback?" Grace tapped her phone. "Anonymous complaints. People feel you're distant and rigid with scheduling." "Honestly, growth will fix that." I set down my fork. "Show me." She angled the screen. 3 screenshots of reviews with suspiciously similar wording. One included a phrase I had written in an email to Grace 2 weeks ago. The salad wilted in my lap. "You wrote these." Grace's smile didn't slip. "We collected them." Mom reached for my hand. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We already scheduled a meeting with investors on Tuesday. They're expecting a founder who understands family." Dad added, almost proudly, "We used the house as collateral for the bridge loan." I heard the clock tick. I heard a plate crack as Mom set it down too hard. I heard my own voice, calm as a metronome. "You did what?" Silence settled like dust. Then I flipped open my leather portfolio. "Okay," I said, sliding out a stack of papers I hadn't planned to use tonight but kept on principle. "Let's start with the part where none of this is legal." Grace smirked like she'd already won the gold medal in Family Olympics. "You're being defensive. We're presenting opportunities." I laid out my own stack of papers. Opportunities don't usually involve fraud, breach of contract, and impersonation of a registered health business. Dad frowned. Oh, come on. Don't use lawyer words. I'm not. These are the words from my actual lawyer. I tapped the first sheet. Cease and desist drafted 2 weeks ago, because someone started emailing suppliers under my clinic's letterhead. Grace's hand twitched. Mom's wine glass froze midair. I leaned back. Guess whose IP address those emails came from? Mom exhaled loudly, like I was embarrassing the family. It's all semantics. Families share. No, families don't steal EIN numbers to apply for federal loans in someone else's name. I slid another page forward, printout of a loan application with my name but Grace's handwriting on the financials. Her face flickered. You're overreacting. Overreacting? My voice stayed calm. You listed yourself as 51% owner of Revitalize PT. You also projected $2 million in revenue by year 2. Curious, since you've never read my P&L. Dad rubbed his temple. Numbers can be adjusted. What matters is we believe in you. Translation, we believe in our right to cash in. I flipped another page. This time, screenshots of those anonymous complaints. Funny thing, Google can trace metadata. All 3 were written on the same device. Yours. Grace flushed crimson. That doesn't mean. It means, I cut in, you tried to tank my credibility while pitching yourself as my savior. Classic sabotage. Effective if I didn't keep receipts. Mom slammed her glass down. Enough. Your sister is trying to help. She's been working night and day. On my clinic. Without my consent. Using my credentials. Do you understand how illegal this is? Dad's fork clattered. We thought you'd be grateful. We thought you'd finally recognize Grace's strengths. Grace's voice wavered, but her chin stayed high. You were never meant to be the face. You're clinical. Cold. I'm the people person. Investors see that. Something in me snapped, not anger, but clarity. They weren't asking. They'd already bet the house, the money, their pride, on Grace's fantasy. I was supposed to absorb the blow, like always. I stacked my papers neatly. If you go through with that investor meeting, I will file suit. Not a bluff. Fraud, misrepresentation, identity theft. You'll lose the house before an investor signs a check. Silence thickened. Then Dad leaned forward, voice low, dangerous. If you turn on this family, don't come crawling back when you're alone. Mom whispered, we did this because we love you. Grace added, almost pleading, we're stronger together. Don't ruin it. I closed my portfolio. Stronger together doesn't mean shackled. You wanted a business partner. What you have is a reckoning. That's when my phone buzzed. My receptionist, urgent, call me. It's about your clinic. My stomach dropped. I excused myself from the table before they could swarm me, stepping into the hallway where Mom still kept a landline for aesthetic. I called my receptionist, Dana, who never texted urgent. She answered on the first ring. Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd see this in time. Did you authorize your sister to access our patient portal? The words felt like ice water down my back. No. Why? She showed up this afternoon, Dana rushed. Said she was your new operations manager. She had a badge printed, looked official, and told us you'd forgotten to brief the staff. She tried to download full patient records. HIPAA violations galore. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Please tell me you stopped her. Stopped her? I locked her out of the office and threatened to call the cops. She stormed off saying she'd be back tomorrow with legal authority. Dana's voice wavered. She scared the interns. And she was recording on her phone. I nearly laughed at the absurdity, except my hands shook. Grace, storming into my clinic like a conquering general, trampling the one thing I'd built without them. Dana, listen. You did the right thing. If she shows up again, call me first, then the police. Document everything. Already did. But you need to know, she left behind a folder. Investor packets, with your name on them. Glossy, professional. They were everywhere, like she'd been prepping for a pitch. My heart thudded. She wasn't bluffing about Tuesday. When I returned to the dining room, my family froze mid-conspiracy, like kids caught raiding the cookie jar. Grace lifted her chin. That was Dana, wasn't it? I met her stare. She called to confirm your attempted HIPAA violation. Mom huffed. You're blowing this out of proportion again. She just wanted to understand operations. You don't understand operations by downloading surgical notes and rehab logs. My voice cracked for the first time that night. Do you realize if she'd succeeded, I could lose my license? My career? Dad muttered, we'll smooth it over. Investors won't care. Investors. Always investors, like this was Shark Tank instead of my livelihood. Grace's eyes glittered. You're threatened because I see possibilities. You're chained to rules, but I see freedom. Patients will love me because I'll give them options. Options. That word twisted in my gut. She didn't see people healing after accidents, surgeries, strokes. She saw walking wallets. I opened my portfolio again, sliding out a sealed envelope. Do you know what this is? Nobody answered. It's a letter from the state board. Because unlike you, I follow procedure. I reported suspicious inquiries under my license last month. Guess who they traced them to? I tapped the envelope against the table. Grace's confidence wavered for the first time. You wouldn't. I already did. Dad looked murderous, Mom pale. Grace's nails dug into the tablecloth. But before she could retort, headlights swept across the dining room wall. A car pulled into the driveway. Doors slammed. Voices outside. Then a knock thundered at the door. Mom whispered, horrified, who's that at this hour? I already knew. The state board had come to dinner. The knock echoed through the house like a gavel. Mom fluttered to the window, half pulling the curtain, then froze. There are 2 people in suits. And a police officer. Dad barked, don't open it, but the officer rapped the door again, louder this time. I stood. If you won't, I will. When I opened the door, a pair of bored investigators stepped inside, badges glinting under the chandelier. The officer lingered behind them, arms crossed. Dr. Monroe? The taller one asked. That's me. He nodded. We received a report of attempted unauthorized access to protected health information tied to your clinic. We need to ask you some questions. His eyes flicked past me into the dining room. Is Grace Monroe present? Grace shot up from her chair. This is harassment. You can't just barge into a family home. The shorter investigator pulled out a manila folder. Ms. Monroe, you've been named in multiple complaints for misrepresenting yourself as an operations manager of Revitalize PT, a licensed healthcare practice. We have written statements and video evidence. Mom let out a strangled laugh. Video? That's ridiculous. She's family. Families help each other. HIPAA doesn't recognize family privilege, the investigator said evenly. Grace pointed at me, eyes blazing. She's behind this. She's threatened by me. I was only trying to expand her tiny little clinic. And she's dragging all of us down with her paranoia. Dad jumped in / you don't know the whole story. We've got investors lined up. This is just a misunderstanding. Nobody's pressing charges. The officer finally spoke, calm but firm. Sir, misunderstandings don't explain falsified loan applications and impersonation of a healthcare provider. I set my portfolio on the table, sliding the evidence across like playing cards, the screenshots, the loan paperwork, the forged emails. You'll find these match her signature. And here's the kicker, she used my NPI number without consent. That's a federal offense. The investigators flipped through the pages. The taller one raised his brows. You came prepared. I shrugged, though my heart hammered. I've been documenting for months. Grace's composure cracked. You set me up. I met her eyes. No, Grace. You set yourself up. I just kept the receipts. The officer stepped forward. Ms. Monroe, we'll need you to come with us for questioning. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering across the floor. No. You can't take her. She's my baby. Dad bellowed, you can't do this. We'll sue every one of you. Grace shrieked, twisting toward me. You think you've won? Investors don't care about paperwork. They care about vision. And I'm the vision. You're just a glorified masseuse with a clipboard. The investigator didn't flinch. Ms. Monroe, please put down your phone. She had been recording the entire thing. Grace, I said softly, stop before you bury yourself deeper. For a heartbeat, I thought she might throw the phone at me. Instead, she clutched it to her chest, shaking. You'll regret this. All of you. As the officer guided her out the door, Mom wailed, Dad cursed, and I sat back down at the table. The taller investigator turned to me. Dr. Monroe, we'll need a formal statement tomorrow. In the meantime, we recommend you change your clinic's security protocols immediately. I nodded, voice steady. Already on it. The silence after the squad car pulled away was heavy enough to choke on. Mom sobbed into her napkin. Dad muttered about lawyer friends he didn't actually have. I sat at the head of the table, the binder of their fake business plan staring at me like a corpse no one wanted to move. Finally, Dad snapped, if you think you're walking away clean, you're delusional. Those investors are expecting us on Tuesday. They're not the kind of people you leave waiting. My blood ran cold. What investors, exactly? He smirked like he had an ace up his sleeve. Private equity. Big players. They called me when Grace pitched them. They've got real money, not the penny anti-scraps your clinic pulls in. I leaned forward. Give me names. He folded his arms. If you want to know, show up Tuesday. You'll thank me when you see the offer. Mom dabbed at her eyes. They just want to help. You'll see. Grace may have crossed a line, but the vision was sound. I gathered my papers back into the portfolio and stood. If these so-called investors show up, it won't be a deal. It'll be a scam, or worse. Dad barked a laugh. Oh, please. You think you're so much smarter than us, with your fancy degrees. Maybe it's time you realized the real world runs on guts, not rules. I stared at him. The real world can land you in prison if you sell stolen medical data. I left the house, the night air sharp against my skin, but my chest felt heavy. When I got home, my inbox had exploded. 30 unread emails, all from unknown domains. Subject lines like partnership opportunity and excited to discuss scaling. Attached decks, letters of intent, even a calendar invite for Tuesday, 9 a.m., downtown conference room. And every single one was addressed not just to me, but to Dr. Monroe and co-owner Grace Monroe. Some of these firms were real. I recognized two from industry news, small but legitimate healthcare funds. Others, less so. One had a logo that looked suspiciously like clip art. Another promised instant crypto-backed capitalization. Grace had cast a wide net. And unbelievably, she'd caught fish. My phone buzzed again. A new voicemail. I put it on speaker. A man's voice, slick, confident. Dr. Monroe, this is Vincent Carraway with Apex Growth Partners. We're impressed with your expansion plan. Looking forward to finalizing terms Tuesday. Grace assured us you're aligned. Call me back if you'd like to discuss valuations, though I warn you, interest is high. Grace had built a house of cards, but she'd built it big enough that outsiders were now leaning on it. I flipped open my portfolio again. Fresh page. Pen uncapped. If they wanted a meeting, they'd get one. But it would be on my terms. Because if investors thought they were buying into my clinic, they were about to discover they'd walked into a different deal entirely. A deal I would control. Monday morning at the clinic, my staff looked rattled. Dana had already posted a security notice on the break room wall, warning everyone not to share information with outsiders. My interns avoided eye contact, clearly spooked by Grace's weekend invasion. Team meeting in 10, I announced, clutching my portfolio. We're going to talk about boundaries. When everyone gathered, I laid it out. If Grace shows up again, she is not affiliated with this clinic. If anyone calls asking about ownership, you say the same thing. Document everything. And from this moment forward, only I approve vendor contracts. One of the interns raised a timid hand. What if the investors come here? I smiled grimly. They won't. We'll be meeting them on neutral ground. I didn't tell them I had already RSVP'd yes to that Tuesday calendar invite. I wanted those investors in one room where I could control the narrative. By noon, I was sitting across from my lawyer, Ms. Alvarez, a woman with a voice like a buzzsaw. She scanned the fake business plan, then the emails. Your sister's reckless. But she's also dangerous. If these investors were misled with falsified documents, you need to go on record. I will, I said. But I want to do more than defend myself. I want to end their delusion. Alvarez leaned back. How? I slid my portfolio open, revealing what I'd worked on last night, my real 5-year expansion plan. Numbers solid. Patient outcomes highlighted. Partnerships with surgeons, already under contract. I'm going to show the investors the truth. Grace can't compete with facts. Alvarez tapped her pen thoughtfully. You could play this 2 ways. 1. Expose the fraud, scare them off, shut it down. 2. Flip the meeting. Show them you're the only credible Monroe, and watch Grace implode in real time. I didn't hesitate. Option 2. She smirked. Then you'll need me in the room. Investors respect counsel. And I'll bring a surprise guest. Who? Your board investigator from last night. He owes me a favor. By the time I left her office, adrenaline buzzed through my veins. That night, my phone blew up with family group texts. Dad, we'll pick you up tomorrow at 8. Don't embarrass us. Mom, wear something flattering. Investors like approachable. Grace, don't bother bringing your notes. I'll lead. I didn't respond. Instead, I triple-checked my portfolio, then packed an extra folder labeled evidence. Tuesday morning, I walked into the Glass Tower Conference Center downtown. Grace was already there, pacing in heels too tall for business. Mom clutched her pearls, Dad looked smug. And across the room, 3 men in tailored suits waited, sleek binders open. Apex Growth Partners, in the flesh. Grace beamed when she saw me. Finally. Don't worry, I'll handle the pitch. I smiled, sliding my leather portfolio onto the polished table. Perfect, I said. Because I brought the real pitch. The investors' brows rose. And just like that, the battle began. The conference room smelled of expensive cologne and stale coffee. The tallest investor, Vincent Carraway himself, leaned forward, teeth bright as if polished for the occasion. Dr. Monroe. Grace has told us a lot about you. We're eager to hear your joint vision. Grace clapped her hands, yes. I'll start. She launched into her slideshow with the enthusiasm of someone auditioning for Broadway. Buzzwords flew: scaling, monetization, brand synergy. Every chart was an inflated fantasy. She promised VIP recovery memberships, celebrity endorsements, and global reach within 3 years. I sat quietly, watching the investors' polite masks slip. They were intrigued but skeptical. Then Grace turned to me, triumphant. And now my sister, the clinical face of our vision, will explain why this model works. All eyes landed on me. I stood slowly, portfolio in hand. Thank you. But I should clarify something first. I am the only owner of Revitalize PT. There is no R in this clinic. Never has been. Grace sputtered, she's just nervous. Ignore that. I flipped my portfolio open, sliding real documents across the table, audited financials, patient outcome metrics, referral letters from surgeons. Here are the facts. We operate at 92% capacity, with a 3-month patient waitlist. 95% of clients report measurable improvement. That's our growth story, not fantasy, not fraud. Caraway's brows lifted as he scanned the pages. This is significantly more credible than what we received from Grace. Grace's voice pitched higher. Because she's small-minded. She doesn't dream big enough. Investors want scale, not spreadsheets. One of the other suits murmured, dreams don't protect you from regulators. I slid the evidence folder forward. Speaking of regulators, here's the rest: forged loan applications, falsified complaints, unauthorized attempts to access patient records. All tied to Grace. Mom gasped. Dad muttered, that's family business, you can't. Alvarez, my lawyer, stepped from the back of the room like a queen entering court. Actually, you can. And you should. Grace went pale. You brought a lawyer? And an observer, Alvarez added. The door opened again, revealing the board investigator from Sunday dinner. He gave Grace a polite nod. Caraway's face hardened. Grace, is this true? Grace stammered, hands trembling. It's exaggerated. She's twisting it. I was just innovating. I looked at the investor squarely. You came here thinking you were buying into a partnership. What you're actually looking at is a clean, profitable clinic run by one owner, and a fraudster who's been exploiting family ties. The silence was brutal. Finally, Caraway closed the glossy binder Grace had prepared and pushed it aside like trash. He leaned toward me. Dr. Monroe, would you be open to continuing this conversation, privately? Grace's face crumpled. No. You can't. I'm the visionary. Dad slammed his fist. You'll regret cutting us out. Security, summoned by a discreet gesture from the investigator, appeared at the door. Mom whispered, voice breaking, please, just don't do this to your sister. I gathered my papers calmly. She did this to herself. And for the first time, the investor smiled at me. But I knew it wasn't over, because Grace wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. The conference room emptied in fragments, investors shaking my hand, Alvarez trading cards with them, my parents hissing in a corner like snakes. Grace, though, didn't leave. She stood rooted, knuckles white around her phone, eyes glassy but burning. You think you've won, she whispered. I closed my portfolio. It's not a competition, Grace. It's my life. Her laugh was jagged. No, you don't understand. I prepared for this. Before I could react, she tapped her phone, projecting an email thread onto the room's big screen. Somehow she'd connected it to the AV system. Dozens of messages spilled across the wall, out-of-context snippets from my clinic communications, twisted to look sinister. Look, she cried, pointing. She hides things from patients. She pushes them into treatments for money. She's no saint, she's worse than me. Those emails were real, except butchered, cherry-picked, edited. One line about maintaining compliance to ensure insurance payout had been isolated to sound like fraud. Another thread with Dana about firing an intern for misconduct looked like I was covering up abuse. Mom gasped. Dad sneered, see? Not so perfect after all. The investors paused, wary again. Caraway folded his arms. Dr. Monroe? How do you respond? I didn't flinch. I pulled out my laptop, connected it to the projector, and mirrored the same threads, but this time in full context. Here's what those emails actually say. Compliance to ensure insurance payout for patients, not me. Termination of an intern for falsifying hours, not abuse. Grace cherry-picked words to spin a story. Alvarez stepped forward, for the record, altering electronic communications and misrepresenting them to third parties? Also fraud. Also actionable. The board investigator nodded. And we have a pattern of deception that reinforces her intent. Grace's bravado cracked. Her hand shook so badly she dropped the phone. Still, she rallied, they'll believe me. People want to believe I'm the victim. I'll go public. I'll ruin you. I looked her dead in the eye. Grace, you already tried. Remember those fake reviews? Google already flagged your account. You've lost credibility before you even began. One of the investors, quiet until now, spoke up. Ms. Monroe, credibility isn't a resource you get back once it's gone. Carraway stood, buttoning his jacket. Dr. Monroe, my team will follow up. Ms. Monroe, he didn't even look at Grace, this concludes our interaction. He left, his colleagues trailing behind. The room emptied again, leaving only family, Alvarez, and the investigator. Dad growled, you humiliated us. I met his stare. No, Dad. You humiliated yourselves when you gambled my clinic like poker chips. And for the first time I believed her empire of illusions was finally collapsing. The days after the investor showdown blurred. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, messages from colleagues, cautious congratulations from peers, even a terse email from Carraway's assistant scheduling a formal follow-up. But the war at home had only begun. Mom called non-stop, her voicemails dripping with venom and guilt in equal measure. Your sister hasn't eaten in 2 days. You destroyed her future. Family comes before pride, don't you remember? Dad texted less, but when he did, it was nuclear. Ungrateful snake. Blood is thicker than contracts. You'll regret crossing us. Grace, though, she went silent. No calls. No rants. Nothing. At the clinic, Dana handed me a stack of mail. These came in bulk. Inside, printed flyers smearing my name. Don't trust Dr. Monroe, she hides the truth. Grainy versions of the same doctored emails Grace had tried to weaponize. Someone had mailed them to referral surgeons, even to a nearby hospital. My stomach turned. She's still at it. Dana folded her arms. Then we get louder. Patients know you. Staff knows you. We fight facts with truth. That evening, Alvarez called. We filed for an injunction. Any more stunts like this, and your sister faces contempt. I exhaled. You think she'll stop? Alvarez chuckled darkly. No. But she'll trip over her own lies soon enough. They always do. Wednesday morning, a reporter showed up outside my clinic with a camera crew. Dr. Monroe. Care to comment on allegations of misconduct at your practice? I froze on the sidewalk, Dana at my side. Behind the reporter, I spotted her, Grace, standing across the street, sunglasses on, lips curved in a smug little smile. I forced calm. Yes. My only comment is that the allegations are false, and currently the subject of legal action. The reporter pressed. But your own sister says. Dana cut in, fierce. Her sister isn't a licensed professional, isn't affiliated with this clinic, and is under investigation herself. That night, the news segment ran. To my shock, it wasn't the hit piece Grace expected. The reporter had fact-checked and highlighted Grace's fraud history instead. Emails poured in. Patients wrote, "We're behind you." Colleagues offered, "Need us to testify?" Even the state board released a statement clearing me of wrongdoing. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground steady beneath me. I'd spent my life bracing for Grace's storms, every family dinner, every backhanded comment, every manipulation. But now? Now I was done. Saturday morning, I called Alvarez. I want everything formalized. Restraining order, cease and desist, the works. She didn't even hesitate. Already in motion. But if you're serious about cutting ties, you'll need to prepare for fallout. Parents included. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house with a single envelope in my bag. The same dining room table where they'd ambushed me with their crooked business plan was set again, Mom polishing forks, Dad hunched over the paper. Mom looked up, hopeful. "You've come to make peace." "No," I said softly. "I've come to say goodbye." Dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." I laid the envelope on the table. Inside, copies of the injunction, evidence packets, the official statement from the state board clearing me. This is the truth. Grace is facing consequences of her own making. If you choose to keep enabling her, that's your path. But I won't follow it anymore. I picked up my portfolio, that faithful leather shield. I left them there, Mom weeping, Dad fuming, the good forks untouched. Back at the clinic Monday, something miraculous happened. Patients showed up early with coffee for my staff. A retired surgeon dropped by with a referral agreement. Dana hung a hand-drawn sign in the lobby from the interns, "We've got your back, Dr. M." Even Caraway's assistant emailed again, this time with genuine interest in my real expansion plan. "Your numbers impressed the partners," she wrote. "Let's discuss ethical growth." For the first time in my career, I felt visible, not just as the dependable fixer in my family, but as the leader of something I'd built with my own 2 hands. That night, I sat at home with a glass of wine, my portfolio open on the table, not as armor, but as a reminder. Inside weren't just documents. They were years of sweat, sacrifice, and quiet victories no one in my family had ever cared to see. And for once, I didn't need them to. Because the real surprise wasn't Grace's scheme or the investor's attention. The real surprise was me, finally choosing myself. And that, I realized with a smile, was the happiest ending of all.